Vunani Property Investment Fund lists on the JSE's main board today. And we cross now to the JSE, where Rob Kane, CEO of Vunani Property Investment Fund, is standing by. Thanks so much, Rob, for joining us this morning. Well, we've got, as I say, Vunani Property Investment Fund listing on the JSE's main board, and that via a placement of private units. Why the decision to list?
Alishia, thanks very much for having us on. It really was a question of timing. We started the fund in 2006 as a black-controlled, black-managed property fund, and we've grown it to an extent where the assets are just under $1 billion, and it's the right time for us to be listing.
Take us through the company and what it's about here, because this is very much a specialized property fund, and that focuses mainly on the office property sector. So giving access, investors access to a fund that's almost entirely focused on offices. Explain that focus to us.
Very much so. If you look at the current listed sector, I think generally the funds have a very diversified sectoral spread. Whereas historically for the last 5 years we seem to be very successful in delivering very solid returns based on a sectorally focused fund. It's office dominated, and that is an area that we've done very well in. I think compounded growth annually has been 34.3% since inception. So it's certainly worked for us. We believe the timing is right to go to a listing. We need to grow, and we're very, very happy to be here.
These properties are mainly in Gauteng and predominantly leased by national tenants and government departments on long leases. So that certainly looks like it spells a degree of stability and certainty. To what extent? I mean, what kind of vacancy rates are we looking at?
You're right. We have our tenant base is 74% blue chip, which is quite unusual to have that higher spread in the office sector. And our vacancies are historically less than 5%. At the moment we're trading at 4.8%, and interestingly enough 2% of that is a refurbishment we've just completed in Pretoria, and we're busy tenanting that. So I think we do manage these assets very tightly.
I was reading that it's a portfolio that seems slightly under rented, so the rentals are lower on average relative to similar buildings in the office space. What fortune does that spell for the fund?
I think we think that gives it quite a lot of embedded value. Our weighted average lease is roughly about 91 Rand a square metre, and notably new developments that are coming out the ground now, in order to be sensible investments, need to be renting at probably 140 to 170 Rand a square metre. So we think there's good margin in our current rentals and our current stock for good rental growth.
Well, so far it seems that it's an investment strategy that seems to be paying off. Any ambition to diversify away from that focus on office space?
Not really. What we've said to investors who've come with us on our private placing is that we would like the opportunity to acquire assets if we see value in other sectors. But we have done well in offices, and that's where we'd like to stay. So that'll be our dominant focus.
I ask because this listing is being used as a platform for acquisitive growth, as it would provide, provide debt capacity to acquire properties. What's the plan that you've got in mind going down that road when it comes to the kind of acquisitive strategy you're pursuing right now?
Okay, Alishia, we needed about 366 million in order to list. What we've raised through a private placing is 622 million. So obviously we're very pleased with that. What that allows us to do is pay down almost all of our debt. So we're starting a fund ungeared, which is relatively unusual in the listed sector. This gives us an ability to acquire in the short term about 600 million rands worth of property. We do have a pipeline of existing developments that we're completing, and also other assets that we've been investigating over the last 4 or 5 months. So we intend to grow the fund without diluting yield or quality.